Hey guys, welcome back to Sparkman Homestead. My name is Krista. We're in the kitchen today. We are going to be experimenting with some new recipes today. So about a month ago, I harvested some radishes from my garden, probably even more than a month ago. So these guys have been in my fridge for probably about a month and a half, and I need to find something to do with them. They have just been kind of sitting there staring at me, and I can definitely have them cut up on a salad, but we don't have any more lettuce in our garden. My lettuce all went to seed because it got so hot here. So I'm not making salads right now. And I could do, the typical thing with them. I could make them into like a ferment, or I could pickle them. There's all kinds of things that you can do with radishes. But I thought I would try something a little bit out of the ordinary with them. And the recipe looked super exciting. And I'm hoping that I could actually use this recipe as like a breakfast to have alongside with like some fruit in the morning. So we are going to attempt to make some radish bread. I know. Radish bread sounds kind of crazy. It sounds like, does it even work? But when I look through the recipe, it sounds like it is very much kind of like a zucchini bread. You know how when you make zucchini, you don't necessarily taste the zucchini. There's usually a lot of other things working in it. So I think this radish bread is going to be very, very similar to a zucchini bread, but we're gonna give it a try. It is not a low sugar bread. It does have about a cup of sugar in it. So if you are trying to avoid sugar, you could definitely use like a sugar supplement. Like I would imagine you could get away with using like a stevia in it, or just like a sugar alternative. However you would substitute your sugar with, I'm sure it would work fine in this recipe. So we are gonna get that fun experiment started. The other super fun experiment that I thought we would try today is I thought we would attempt to make our own Cocoa Puff cereal. I found this recipe and I was like, no way you can make, like those box cereals. Some nights I just kind of crave a bowl of cereal. I don't know, it's really weird. I don't eat cereal normally, but some nights I just have a craving for it. So I found this recipe online, and I avoid box cereals for numerous reasons. Particularly, I don't agree with the ingredients in them. They're just full of not good for your body ingredients, and they are definitely not made to have as a breakfast. They are so full of sugar that it is not a good way to start your day. The second reason I avoid box cereals is because they are expensive, like really expensive. I found this recipe and it looks like it is actually a fairly healthy version of a Cocoa Puff cereal. So I thought I would give it a try and see if maybe I can, make this, because my son loves box cereals. He loves sweet box cereals, and I don't like paying the price for it, and I don't like giving him that to start his day with. So we're gonna attempt to make these Cocoa Puff cereal. Hopefully I have all of the ingredients that it calls for. We are on the pantry challenge. We are actually on day 19 of the pantry challenge. As I said in my first video starting this pantry challenge, is I am very loosely doing it. I'm still purchasing things from my local Amish, like produce that I am not growing right now, because we are in the height of preservation season and I don't want to miss out on anything that's in season. So I am still purchasing things. Anyways, I hope we have all the ingredients to make this cereal. Because this cereal has to cool down for quite a bit, I think we will get started on making the cereal, and then while the cereal is cooling, we'll get some of this radish bread started. I'm super excited to do these experimental recipes today, and hopefully they turn out, because if I can find a substitute for box cereal, I tell you, I will be doing it all of the time. To get the Cocoa Puff started, I'm adding 1 cup of old-fashioned rolled oats to my food processor. What I'm doing here is just making an oat flour. If you have oat flour already, obviously you don't need to do this extra step here, but it is so much cheaper to make your own. And as you can see here, it's super easy. You just literally add the old-fashioned rolled oats to your food processor and just keep mixing it essentially until you get that flour texture. So what I'm looking for is very similar to like a whole wheat flour. You want it like finely ground up. Once I get it finely ground up, I'm gonna add half a cup of cocoa powder to this recipe. You can add cacao powder if you have it. In fact, the recipe actually recommends that you add it. So I'm just giving my peanut butter a really good stir here. I am using an all natural peanut butter. You can use any type of seed butter or sun butter if you would like. And I'm gonna add a 1/4 cup of that nut butter to this. And then I'm gonna add 3 tablespoons of a maple syrup here, and it just has to be a real maple syrup. So I am adding 1 teaspoon of baking powder. Now I realized after I added the first scoop there that I'd actually only had a 1/2 teaspoon measuring, so I had to go back and add another 1/2. And then I'm going to add 1 teaspoon of vanilla extract. I always just kind of add vanilla to what I think is right. You can never go wrong with too much vanilla. And then I'm adding 1/2 teaspoon of salt. So you're just gonna turn on your food processor and get it all mixed together until you have a clump form. I just tasted a little bit of it. It is really, really good. What I'm gonna do, there's 2 different recipes that I actually seen online. One of them says to take a small spoon and roll like into little tiny balls. The other recipe that I seen that I think I'm actually gonna do, because it looks a tad bit easier, is it says to take it out and roll it in a log and then slice it into small pieces. So I think that is what we will do for this recipe. Maybe we won't. It is not really sticking together very well, so I think we'll just have to use the spoon and put them into little balls. I have a rimmed baking sheet here lined with a silicone mat. I'm not sure how many baking sheets I'm gonna need. I'm thinking that if you are making this for a lot of kids, then you're probably gonna wanna double this recipe because it doesn't look like it's gonna make a whole bunch of cereal, but I just wanted to experiment with it first before I go doubling a recipe. So based on how it tastes so far, I think I'm really, really gonna like this recipe. So I only have 1 cookie sheet out, but we may need 2 cookie sheets. As I was in the middle of making this, the water company actually came to my door and said they were shutting my water off to change my meter out. So I'm hoping that I have running water because I've started all these tasks, and if they just went and shut all my water off for a while, then hopefully it'll be back on soon. I'm gonna make them about that size because you have to remember these need to be bite sizes. This is a cereal, not a cookie. So I'm gonna make them about that size. Hopefully that's not too big. And then we'll just get them all put on our cookie sheet. Whew, we got them all rolled out. Now, some of these are probably bigger than you would want, but to be honest with you, I got rolling halfway through and I was like, this is very tedious work. So I actually got out a little melon baller and kind of used that as a little guide. You could probably definitely, again, make these a lot smaller than I did, but you can see it doesn't make a lot. So if you are making this for more than 1 or 2 kids, I would definitely double the recipe. So what we're gonna do is we are going to put it into the oven and we're gonna cook it for, it says 8 to 10 minutes. Now the recipe that I am leaving linked for you guys does not have the temperature on it. So I had to reference a couple of other recipes that were very similar to this one to get like a rough gauge of what to set the temperature at. A lot of them said 320. So my oven tends to run a little bit on the cooler side, so I have my oven at 350. If you want to set your oven at 350, you can do that. They may be done before the 8 to 10 minutes. I would just check on them. So let's get these put into the oven. We got that timer set for 8 minutes. So a couple of things about this recipe. I added an unsweetened peanut butter. In this recipe, because it is a no sugar recipe, you definitely want to make sure that you are using an all natural peanut butter or an all natural seed butter. So no additional sugar in it. I don't know if using a sweetened peanut butter would change the outcome of the product because there's more sugar in that. I don't know, but it would definitely make it a non-sugar free thing. I used maple syrup there. If you don't want to use maple syrup, you can use any liquid sweetener, or you could use honey as well. That's also a really good substitute for that. We just have them in here, and then we're going to cook them for 8 to 10 minutes. And then what we're going to do is when we take them out, we're going to let them cool for 10 minutes. And then it says a serving is half a cup of this cereal in a bowl of milk or yogurt, whatever you want to put it in. So the true test is waiting the 10 minutes for them to cool before we taste them. While we're waiting for those to cook, let's get our radishes kind of pre-prepped. The recipe calls for 1.5 cups of shredded radish, so mine are still dirty. That's one way that I actually store radishes to keep them lasting longer, is you don't want to wash them before you put them in the fridge, because that moisture will create like kind of like a mildew kind of, or mold. So you want to just kind of put them in the fridge dirty. I do the same thing with my carrots. I put them in there dirty. I'm just going to kind of eyeball how many I need to get out here. I'm using a mix of 3 different types of radishes. I have a French breakfast radish. I don't remember what this one is, what these ones are called. I know that there's 3 different varieties in here, so we're just going to use a mix of 3 different kinds. And then again, we got to shred these. So we're going to start with this, and then if we need more, we'll just wash them up as we need them. Our oven just went off, so let's check them and see. Now I set the timer for 8 minutes. They're pretty soft still, so let's put them in for another couple more minutes. I'm thinking we want to have them a little bit more crunchier than this. I'm going to cut off the tops and the ends of these radishes as well when I am shredding them. The chickens will appreciate it. So it just went off again, and I just did a little taste test, and they're still really chewy on the center. I'm thinking maybe 400 degrees should have been the temperature for the oven. With these radishes, these bigger pieces that I couldn't get shredded up, what I'm gonna do is I'm just gonna give these to the chickens, because I don't want really big pieces like this in the bread. I'm thinking that you just want the shredded pieces so that they kind of dissolve in the actual bread. And if you have big pieces like this, you'll probably be able to taste them a little bit more. So we'll just give those ones to the chickens. So I'm just picking them out of all my grated stuff right now. So we don't have quite enough radishes. We only have about 1 cup with that amount. So we need half a more cup. So I'm going to clean off and grate just a couple more of these radishes. We pulled them out of the oven. See them there. We're gonna let them cool for 10 minutes. I'm thinking that as they cool, they'll crunch up a bit. I don't want to put them in there too long because I don't want to burn them. So we'll just let them cool for 10 minutes. And then I guess since this is our very first time making these, this is definitely an experiment to see how long we actually need to cook it. Your oven may very much be very different than my oven. My oven tends to run on the more cooler side. So you just want to maybe pay attention to and just keep periodically checking them. When I'm thinking of like a Cocoa Puff cereal, I'm thinking of like a crunchy taste to it and not like a chewy one. So that's why I'm kind of going more on the overcooked than the undercooked side. Let's give these guys a taste. They are really, really, really good. I don't know if they necessarily taste like a Cocoa Puff, but these are a good cereal. They are still really chewy on the inside. The smaller you make them, I would imagine that the crunchier they're gonna get. That is probably something that I'm gonna do in the future, is make them smaller so that they will be a lot more crunchier. Now the recipe does say that they will actually turn your milk chocolate just like the Cocoa Puffs do. So these are delicious, like really delicious. I can definitely see myself making these again. These are a super good alternative to the box cereals, and they really do taste pretty delicious. For not having like an insane amount of sweetener in them, they taste really good. So that recipe is a win. So let's get started on the radish bread, and hopefully that one will be a win also. To get the radish bread started, I'm just greasing my Pyrex bread pan there. I think the recipe states a 9x5 bread pan. And I'm just adding a sifter to a large mixing bowl, and I'm gonna put in 2 cups of unbleached all-purpose flour. I would imagine that you could probably get away with using a gluten-free flour mix as long as it is one that is pretty interchangeable to an all-purpose flour. And I'm adding 1 teaspoon of baking soda, 1 teaspoon of cinnamon, and then half a teaspoon of salt. And then I'm just gonna get that sifted together. I definitely needed to do this because my baking soda was clumpy, so this was a requirement. And so once I get everything incorporated there and sifted, I'm going to get a medium-sized mixing bowl there and just add 1 egg, and I'm adding half a cup of applesauce. Now the recipe does state to use an unsweetened applesauce. Mine has sugar in it, and I didn't think it was a problem because as you see here, I'm adding 1 cup of white sugar. And then I'm adding a 1/4 cup of whole milk there, and I'm just getting it all whisked in and incorporated. Again, this recipe is not a sugar-free recipe, but if you do have a sugar substitute that you use instead of like a white sugar, you could probably use that also. You could maybe even get away with using a honey in this as well. So what I'm doing is I'm just stirring the wet ingredients into the dry ingredients, getting it kind of incorporated, and then adding those 1.5 cups of shredded radish, and then just getting everything mixed together. I'm gonna add that to my greased loaf pan and get that put into the oven. So we were able to keep our oven on at 350 because this recipe is at 350 also. So it does say to cook this for 60 to 70 minutes. We're gonna go with the 70 minutes because, as I said before, my oven runs cold. So it does also suggest to do the toothpick check. So make sure your toothpick comes out clean. So we will maybe do the toothpick check at about 60 minutes, and then from there to see if we need to add that extra 10 minutes or not. So let's get this put into the oven. I wanted to show you guys, Steven actually just got home. He went and ran an error for me in Bowling Green. He went and picked up 10 pounds of fresh picked blueberries. They just picked these yesterday and this morning. So excited to get some of these in the freezer, and I need to find a couple of blueberry recipes for these. I also wanted to let you know, for the Cocoa Puffs, to store them, it suggests storing them in a glass container, so like a mason jar, and it says they will stay fresh on your counter for up to 1 week, but you can also store them in the fridge if you're not comfortable with storing them on your counter. So I'm gonna get these guys into a mason jar, and I'm gonna get these guys starting to flash freeze because my goal with some of these blueberries is actually to get some into the freezer for the winter months. This is the time of year where I bulk up on all of my berries for the upcoming year. And unfortunately, the birds actually got at my lonely 1 blueberry bush, so I have no blueberries on it. So I'm really thankful to get those into the freezer. So I tested this at 60 minutes and it was not done, so I put it back into the oven for another 10 minutes. So let's do a toothpick check. So we're just gonna let this cool down for a minute or 2, and then we will do a taste test. A lot of comments on the recipe were saying that they like to have this bread as like a breakfast bread. They were saying it's really good with an egg on the side of it. So I'm anxious to try and see what it tastes like. It smells really good in here. It's hard to describe the smell. There's definitely a sweet smell to it. There's definitely no radish smell at all. So we will come back when this is ready to get taken out, and then we'll do a little taste test. Okay, it's still a little hot, and I want to do the taste test when it's hot because I love hot bread out of the oven. One thing that I'm actually not a fan of is I hate the ends. I usually end up giving the ends to my chickens because I just don't like them. They're too crusty. Let's get a piece here. That's what the inside looks like. We're gonna give it a little taste test with butter. It smells really sweet. Okay, let's see. It's really good. You actually cannot taste a bit of the radishes. It's exactly like a zucchini bread. It kind of tastes like, it just tastes like a cinnamon bread, kind of. It's really, really good, guys. This is a really good recipe to try to use up some radishes. I am definitely gonna be making this again. It is like a sweet bread. You don't taste any of that radish. It's really weird. So I'm gonna go and finish that piece of bread. I actually have some lunch made over here. It is 3 o'clock, but we're having a very late lunch, which means we'll have a late supper. We actually have a friend in from out of town, and they're outside working on a car right now, so I made up some leftover steaks, just fried it in some seasoning, and then we're just gonna make some nachos with them. So I'm gonna go and enjoy those, have something to eat because I'm starving, finish this bread. But I hope you guys enjoyed today's video, and I hope you have a great day or night whenever you are watching this, and I will see you on the next video. Bye, guys.